Namathu Ratana Tayasa. May I pay homage to Triple Gem, the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. My respect goes to my parents and my teachers. Hello, good evening, everyone. So today is Monday, the 9th of November 2020. And this is Ajahn Sujan from Varapunya Meditation Center, Aberdeen, Scotland. As usual, I'm here with you all tonight during this time. And thank you everyone for joining with me and listening this online Dhamma talk. I hope that my sound is okay to you all. I noticed that yesterday there are some delays as I was talking. So you can text me saying whether a comment whether the sound is okay or not. So today is a Monday. It's a working day. At the center, we also start again putting the floor, working floor, and further other activities at the center. Just preparing. Oh, thank you, Margaret. Good to know the sound is okay and normal. When I was reflecting that all the evening talks that I have given since around June, July, I gave a talk on the basis of the discourses of the Buddha, and particularly the first discourse of the Buddha, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, and I tried my best to explain the most fundamental basic teachings of the Buddha in my understanding and try to make it simpler as I could. Following that, again with the link of that all conditioned dhammas are subject to ceasing, I was explaining the paticca samuppada, the dependent origination, that how things are interdependent in one another and there is no single cause for any particular things. We're always, and things are always, depending on so many other factors, which helps us, or one who has got the vision, Buddha used the words, will know that we are not the one. We are not alone. We basically grow with the support of so many people. And with that, I was explaining on the dependent origination that one of the very profound and very difficult to understand. And yet, if we practice meditation and even just a little bit of reflecting on that, then it helps us to ponder and understand the dependent origination quite well. But doesn't mean that we have fully understood and we have fully comprehended. It's unlikely, as long as we haven't eradicated all the defilements, the greed, hatred, and delusion that we normally have and possessed by it, due to the ignorance about the world. We will not be able to fully comprehend it, but at least we see the path. At least we see the destiny, and at least we see how we are interconnected. And in the dependent origination, also known as a causality, basically it's talking about becoming and ending. It's talking about how things arises, how things come to be, and how things ceases. When we talk about how things come to be, when we look at from the theistic religion, where has got the concept of the God, with little bit of a conflict may arise. Let's say in Christianity, in Hinduism, in Judaism, or in so-called Mohammedanism or the Islam, may feel like a contradict with the teachings or with their scripture. But here it is simply, the Buddha is simply presenting in a sense that in a core that how things are interdepending one another to come to be. Our life is also like that. Oftentimes we forgot to think how much we are related to so many other people, so many other services around. And with this, normally people have got this sense of understanding that the whole world is there to serve their comfort and happiness. And with this deluded mind and delusion, people constantly thinking of their superiority, and then others are not superior. The very moment when there is a difference between one another, at that moment the conflict begins. Conflict emerges. And there will be a comparison between one and another that I am better than someone else. So that's why this becoming, according to the Buddha's point of view, is basically teaching us to see that we are made out of so many other components, known as the, in a broad sense, as a 5 aggregates. And so we basically, our own individual life itself again made out of these 5 aggregates. And if we forget about the 5 aggregates, think about your own entity as a child, or as a son or a daughter of one family. Then you are conditioned and nurtured by your parents. And only parents are not good enough. You have to have a close relatives, grandparents or neighbors to support you, nurture you. And that's how we absorb the identity, culture, tradition, and we project ourselves into my religion, my tradition, my culture, my nation. So there is a my. And these concepts of this mine developed simply, we observe ourselves, this 5 aggregate, which is known as the a mind and a body, as an entity that belongs to me. And with this attachment or grasping onto that this belongs to me, we gradually try to link up with so many other identities, simply to preserve, simply to project, simply to demonstrate, and to dominate others. When we look into the components of ourself again, then we realize that we have no control over ourself. Now when I talk mind and a body, according to the Buddhist philosophy, it is divided into 5 aggregates. It's called rupa, or the matter, the physical body that we see. Vedana, the feelings that we feel. And this Vedana is again in a very neutral. And Sanya, the memory. Sankhara, the evolutional formation. And the consciousness, the Vijnana. So these are the 5 components, comes together, makes our life. And when we look at our life, then we realize, do we have control over this life at all? So it's simply become to exist as this flesh, this body, and it grows, and then gradually it fades, and end of the day, it just dissolves. And when you look at in this way, we have no control. That's why we don't want to get old. We don't want to get sick. We don't want to be dying. We don't want to see any wrinkles. We don't want to see that getting all the face hanging. We want to be cheerful. We want to be like young as we were. But we have no control over it at all. The whole body is growing and nurturing along with what we eat and where we live. And we have no control over it. And similarly, the mind, that we think that we have control over it, but in fact we haven't got any control over it. Our understanding of the things developed along the way. So that's why I normally used to say that 20 years, when I was at 20 years, I was thinking about myself that who will I be before the 20 years? I had so many thoughts to be, wanting to be. And after I crossed the 20 years, my brain worked in a different ways, my perception changed, and then with that, all what I was thinking is, how can I be best? How can I be better? How can I get most out of things? And in this moment, you will disregard every possible ways that will not make you satisfy. Whether that is good or bad, you will not take on board. You're always thinking about your success. And then after 30 years, you become more close to your own grounds, own genes, thinking of the families, thinking of the relatives. The mindset has changed into the establishment or finding a place to settle down. And this moment, I still remember that when I was when I came to UK around just about the mid 20s. At that time, my thought was just about me and me and me. But as soon as I crossed the 30, I began to think about the establishment of myself, where I will be, where I wanted to be. And after 40 years, now I am over 40, so I'm just telling you, our perception has changed. My perception has changed. And it could be because of my meditation or because of I'm studying Dhamma and practicing Dhamma. It made me so much joy and so much satisfaction with the life, that how much have I done and how good I have done towards others and then to myself. And there is no regrets whatsoever if I have to leave or basically die. So that's why even our mind, we have no control over it. That sometimes ago you may want to become something, but somehow the condition changes, situation changes, and you become something else than you were thinking of. And your understanding about the things also changes as you grow up. So mind also accumulates so much different new knowledges along the way. That's why we have to have an education. And the concept of education also changed over the period of a time. In the past, it was based on a religion. And based on a religion, not only based on a religion, it was also towards their own ethnicity or their own good, their own benefit, or their own castes or ethnic groups. Even when I was reading about the Cambridge or Oxford, those universities, world famous university educational institutes, Oxford or Cambridge, initially it was developed on the basis of Christian missionaries. And again, ladies weren't allowed to study until early 19th century. And those who are not believing in Christianity were not allowed to study. So like that. And then later on, it's become a middle class, and then gradually it opened to all as form of a business. So the education become also part of the propaganda of individuals' information that one wants to give to the new generation. And that's how our mind also changes. And basically, that is the reason why I always take my view that we human beings are psychologically affected beings. It's up to each and individual who is a very influential speaker. They can influence our thoughts, they can influence our understanding, and they can influence the way we make decisions, and which normally the politicians normally do in that way, manipulating their speech to convince people to vote for them. So that's why it's very important that when Buddha was instructing people about his teachings, not just his teachings, but any teachings or any information that one get, rather than believing immediately, ponder, investigate, and after you have fully investigated, and which is benefit for yourself, benefit for others, and then a benefit for both, then take it as the truth. And that is why Buddha's teachings is called akaliko, timeless. And also it's ehipassiko, you can see by yourself. And it's inviting, that's why it's called come and see. So Buddha's teachings is come and see, not come and believe. So that's whatever you hear, whatever you have heard, any information, whether it is about the religion, whether it is about any faiths, any propagandas, rather than believing immediately once you have heard, you have to investigate properly. And only then, if that's good for all three parties, then take it as the truth. So whole Buddha's teachings is like a plate of food that is presented to you, and it's up to you how to investigate and take on board. So this is what we need to understand, that in modern education is basically is training you to produce more productions or working for their prosperity. Basically, they are training you to work for them. And we are imprisoning ourselves by the information and the studies that we are doing and we have no such things as called thinking, so wisely reflecting. That's why we also psychologically affected by so many people and impact. Wish I can be one of the inspirational speaker, so I can influence you all to believe me what I am saying. But I always used to say that what I say, don't believe until you have investigated properly. And which is the reason I remember when I was in King's Bromley, and after the meditation we used to have a discussion on different topics and on the discourses. And normally every night after hour of a discussion, and at the end of the discussion, I used to say to them that whatever I am saying is my thought on the basis of what the Buddha taught, and on this my understanding. It's you have to think properly and do not believe me. If you want to take it, believe it, so think and think wisely, and only then take it. So this is the beauty of the Buddha's teachings. Whatever you hear, take on board, but do not believe in immediately. Investigate properly. That's why the Buddha's teachings is come and see, not come and believe. And even Buddha gave a freedom to question about anything, any subjects. Before he passed away, it's called Mahaparinibbana. Even that time, he requested all the venerable monks who were at present at that time, saying that venerable monks, if you have any doubts and any questions, please ask me, so that you don't have to regret, or so that you don't have this guilty of not asking after the Tathagata has gone. So when Buddha announced that to the middle of the monks, hundreds of monks were present at that time before the Buddha shut down himself, then no monks asked any questions or any doubts. So that's why it is the teachings of the Buddha that you can question to anything about the teachings of the Buddha, and there won't be any offense at all. And these questions, again, what needs to understand that it is for, you are questioning for the gain of knowledge, so that you can walk on the path, but not for causing a trouble. So the Buddha's teachings is basically, opening our spirituality, opening our psyche, opening our mind, inviting us to study, inviting us to investigate, not hearing the teachings from one or two person here and there, and then it makes like truth and it makes sense to me and take believe in. If you are taking that belief in this way, then that will be ignorance. Without investigating, you have taken on board that teachings and blindly believing that that is true. So that's why in Buddhism, this is a very, very important message that you should remember, that in Buddhism there is no conversion. Conversion is you're forcing someone to convert from one to another. But if someone has studied, someone has understood and followed the path, we cannot call that as a conversion. They have just walked the right path, and that path will bring the happiness. That path will bring the success. That path will bring the prosperity. Conversion oftentimes brings unhappiness, oftentimes brings the suppression, oftentimes brings misunderstanding. But if you have fully understood and you walk the path, then always bring happiness, always bring satisfaction, and with that you will not be following with the extreme views. You won't be extremists, fundamentalists, but you become a moderate, following the path that will not go either side of the extremes, but following the middle path, which is the teachings of the Buddha, that follow the middle path. And this life, our life, is like that too. Once we have understood this in this way, with your own self-reflection and investigation, you will lose your ego, you will lose your identity that this is mine, this is me. But you will understand that how everything connected, and how am I connected to this the whole cycle of a birth and a death, and how I was become. And then with this, as the particles or the condition dissolves, then I realize that there is an end of me too. But this end, we shouldn't be taking as a pessimistic or nihilism. It's the Buddha's teachings is giving us a hope and a success, that we have a right to move, to change, to get the success, and that's the final liberation. First, drop your ego. Second, walk the path. And then third, attain the liberation. So I offer this as tonight's reflection for today. And thank you everyone for listening and joining with me. And may you all be well and happy. May the Buddha Dhamma Sangha bless you. And as usual, in a few moments time, we're going to have evening chanting for half an hour and guided meditation. You are most welcome to join with us. Meanwhile, furthermore, if you have any questions regarding the Buddha's teachings, and as well as on a meditation, you are most welcome to ask a question. Just text me, and then I will try to cover in following nights, or I will speak on the spot, just to give you information about it. Meanwhile, we have a Wednesday morning meditation at 8 o'clock. You are most welcome to join. And a regular, as you know, 6:30 we have this Dhamma talk and guided meditations will follow. You're most welcome to join with us. So until then, good night and see you shortly. Stay safe, take care. Sadhu.